A recent survey suggests more conservative Republicans nationwide call Romney acceptable opponent to President Obama in the general election. Of course, analysts said for months that voters were shopping around among the GOP contenders. With us now, political analyst James Kotecki. He's with the Cypress Group, a D.C. think tank that describes itself as nonpartisan, if there is such a thing. His commentaries appear in The Economist, The Washington Post, and U.S. News & World Report. Also with us, Fox News political analyst Juan Williams, who writes for a bunch of newspapers and such, but makes this his main gig. They shopped around, and then the evangelicals got together last weekend and said, okay, there's nobody acceptable, and it seems like they've punted.
Well, you know, they're still hunting. But if you get a strong, and I say strong, again, we were talking thresholds. You were talking thresholds a moment ago with Governor Huntsman. He's talking about what it will take for him to have some momentum coming out of here. Let's for a second focus on Mitt Romney. If he comes out of here 45%, exceeding the 40 that he's been at for most of the time, I don't know how you then don't say that it's time for a coronation.
And, you know, can I go against conventionalism just for a second here?
You should.
What if Mitt Romney comes out of here with like a one-vote advantage over his next closest rival? I still think that even though all the pundits would say that's terrible, it's not in the long term fatal to him because he's got the money and the organization. And it might in that case be to his advantage to keep as many candidates in the race as possible, jockeying to take him out and jockeying against each other. And he can kind of go the distance with his money and organization. They really can't.
They're all taking shots at him, but I wonder to what degree that might be helpful, in that all of this junk is out there already. The Bain Capital stuff has been, you know, soaked up and wrung out and all that by the time the Obama machine gets near him. I don't know.
Well, I think that it explores that line of attack. The surprise has been that it's coming from fellow Republicans and even people like Jon Huntsman, who's a fellow, you know, a multimillionaire, comes from a rich family, so he's the sign of wealth, is just like you see with Romney. But Huntsman's made the point, his father and he have created companies that create wealth, create jobs. It wasn't about destroy. So this argument about capitalism and wealth inside the Republican Party, I think is opening a vein.
Yeah.
I think it's more problematic than rather the way you're thinking, which is that you might bleed this out and it'll be gone by the time the Obama people get to it.
Yeah, the Democrats must be doing backflips that the Republicans are putting the free market, in a sense, on trial.
They have to be.
In their own primary. I mean, it's ludicrous to say that if you're going to be for the free market with no government intervention at all, that somehow it's bad if people get fired. I mean, it's not good for the individual, but that's the consequence of creative destruction. People get hired, people get fired. And for Newt Gingrich to say that that somehow makes Mitt Romney a bad businessman, this is a very new tack to take. Not to mention the fact, I talked to a New Hampshire voter the other day, she said, look, aren't Newt Gingrich and all the rest of the Republicans going to fire a lot of government workers if they get in? Aren't they going to cut a lot of government jobs? So firing is not necessarily a logically consistent position within the attacks on Mitt Romney right now.
Jon Huntsman, he's got a surge going here. Does he have a snowball's chance in Miami?
Oh, in Florida, you mean?
Anywhere?
Well, not here. I mean, not to win. And what we're talking about when he's talking about thresholds, he didn't come out straight and say to you, here's what I need. But what he needs is 15% or so. Yeah. He gets 15%. Everybody says, well, there's life there. And then he's not going to do anything in South Carolina, just not his crowd. But you go on to Florida. And
why is it just not his crowd?
Well, values voters, socially conservative people who will view him as...
Is that what you're saying?
Mormonism, yeah, it's might be part of it because it's the strong evangelical community. So you knock out about 20% or so. But really what I'm talking about is money. Yeah. He's got to have money going down into Florida, and that's where his shot would exist.
Yeah, and look, you know, it's actually kind of funny because that poll that you referenced earlier, more moderates and liberal Republicans think that Mitt Romney is acceptable by a wide margin than think that Jon Huntsman is acceptable. So his argument that he's appealing more to moderates and liberals, it actually doesn't bear out in the polling data that I've seen.
Because he worked for President Obama. That was a smart move on this president's part, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Jon Huntsman.
People said it when they appointed him.
China.
Yeah.
And Mitt has been attacking him on that point. Of course, Huntsman comes back and say, you know what, you got to be a patriot and work for your country. But we'll see how I don't think it plays with the Tea Party folks.
No, I don't think so. Hang around, guys. A lot of attacks in this race are not coming from the candidates themselves. They're really coming from those super PACs that have taken over the nation. Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll talk with one of the guys in charge.